Hello again, Struckweb, and as promised, today I will be bringing you an overview of the Act 3 patch for Torchlight 3, the Echonok Mountains or Echonok update as you might want to call it. So I would be kind of summing up some of the information about Act 3, the contracts, the maps and Mapworks, the rebalancing of each class's skills, fixes and bug fixes for some skills, changes with the Lifebound system, some gear related things like Lifebound changes, changes to gear affixes, maybe bugs, some of those that I think would need covering, and also changes to the relic active and activation skills. Each relic got some sort of a rework, and the most notable one probably would be the Bane changing to a more summoner centric one, the Ice relic getting a more damage oriented activation, active skill. And let's just go through all of them, starting with a little bit of info about Act 3 and then move on to the different subjects one by one. So Act 3 has been added, and it's Echonok Echo Landing in the Echonok Mountains. You can see it's got zones like the Grand Hall, the Machine Works, the Scavenger's Trail, the Vultura Village, King's Plateau and Astral Gate. I'm not gonna show you footage of boss fights and stuff like that. I'm gonna show you mostly Mapworks, but I'm gonna show you this loading screen of the Echo Landing and Echo Landing itself. So you can expect to see certain enemies such as those trends. You can see Vultura, you can see different types of automatons. This is the act itself. You see there's the NPC here, the gear vendor for the free items. There's the pet vendor. There's the mayor of the town here that gives you the quests. Overall, it's a pretty nice looking town. I only wish we could use movement skills in the town, because they made it so we can't use movement skills or any type of skills in the town at all. You can see pretty nice looking town overall. So this is the gambler here, and we've got a big ass train over here for those of you who like trains. So yeah, pretty much a nice looking city and a nice looking act. You're gonna be seeing some more footage of me playing that act now, and I'm gonna be talking about some of the things you can expect and some of the mechanics that come with this act. So what is known about this act is that the Echonok Mountains is filled with those ancient forts or buildings created by the Dwarven civilization, who have now perished and are nowhere to be seen. But they have left their legacy under the form of those automatons that you can see me fighting right now. So you're gonna see various types of different automatons, all shapes and sizes, and they would have different types of abilities, but in general something to look out for in this map would be shock. The way shock works is it's a new mechanic that disables your relic active skill while you are shocked, and you can cure it with using the new potion, the potion that's specific to this frontier. It would allow you to cure shock and heal over time for a few seconds. It doesn't heal 60% like a regular potion, it heals 25% and then some more over time. So you can see there's the little robots, there's the big ones, and there's huge ones in some of the mini boss fights. There's also those power coals which you can destroy. They zap you if you're nearby, and there's gonna be a little non-destructible power coals you can destroy as well. So you gotta be careful around them, not to AFK next to a power coil, for example. Now there is another type of creatures that you would be seeing in Act 3 as you traverse through the story and then when you do maps of that act, and those are called the Vultura, and they're those mechanical flying creatures that have been kind of corrupted by Ember, and you would see them sometimes flying, sometimes on the ground, but in general they would be doing shock as well, so you gotta be careful. And there's a interesting new enemy affixes that you have to watch out for, especially those whitenings that fall from the sky that you just saw. So you gotta be really careful around those. They can 1-2 shot pretty quickly, and you can see they spawn in multiple locations. Overall, they're not that hard to deal with as long as you dodge stuff, as long as you're good at dodging. And again, they're not anything that much different than the automatons, except that they end up flying, but they've got kind of the same abilities. They don't have that beaming whitening like the little automatons. They have some kind of melee attacks, and there are some that shoot and can one-shot you if you don't have enough defenses from afar, so you gotta pay attention to those. But in general, they're pretty nice to fight, as long as you, again, I'm gonna say it, are good at dodging and paying attention to what's happening. It's just a little bit easier to dodge stuff when you can see it when you're playing solo, because there aren't that many effects clustering the ground. You can see the broadcasts of their abilities easier. But yeah, in general, there's gonna be two bosses that are Voltura that you have to fight without me spoiling much. Hope you enjoy those fights. They've got their own mechanics, each of them, and they're pretty nice. So automatons, Voltura, and ancient dwarven ruins. That's it for Act 3. So how does the whole contract system work? First of all, you press C and this opens the contracts interface, which should be able to allow you to select between one of 3 contracts. Each contract has 40 one-shot rewards. So for example, let's take the adventurer contract, which is good to get maps for Mapworks. So you make it active and then you start leveling up that as you kill enemies. As you kill enemies that are champions, bosses, mini bosses and so on, you get fame. And as you complete missions in Mapworks, you also get fame. At each Mapworks, which I will talk more about, it's things that you get from those legendary and blue rare map bundles. You get 3 maps from those. So as you complete the missions inside each of those maps, you also get fame as a reward from a chest. So each contract, as I said, has 40 levels. Each level would give you different rewards. You see there's tons of different rewards for decorations, ember cores, wardrobe statues, more stuff for the fort, legendary gear, blue gear. So the legendary gear bundle has 1 legendary item, the blue gear bundle, the rare gear bundle has 3 rare items, and those are of your level. So if you're not level 60, my suggestion is to at least save the legendary gear bundle for when you are level 60. Then there's essence bundles that can give you, as you can see, 8 magic for rare 2 legendary essences. This one is 500 gold. You've got some pets here as well in the mix. All sorts of good stuff. You can open the interface and see for yourself all the things that are inside, but overall there's a ton of stuff to be had here, a ton of stuff. So what else have we here? As you can see, a lot more decorations, and then even a shared stash tab, which unfortunately right now is dead space if you've already reached the limit of 10 stash tabs. So you're not going to be able to do anything until there's a wipe to get rid of things like those that keep piling up. So once you've reached level 40 for a certain contract, there's those 10 repeatable levels. This one, for example, is the best for maps because at level 1, at level 4 and at level 8 you get map bundles. You've also got some things that you get in every contract you do as repeatable, which is some gear bundle for decoration, another gear bundle and a respectacle, along with a greater essence bundle. So let's show you the other one. The other one is good for crafting materials, essences and so on. It still has all of the other things mentioned, but this one is prioritizing essence and resources. So planks, metal bars, stone blocks and magic rare legendary essence. But you're gonna see again it has a lot of the other stuff that I've mentioned. I'm gonna quickly scroll through some of the stuff. I'm not gonna be clicking on everything. This one used to be a Mapworks device. It's now just a decoration. So yeah, you can see all of the rewards here. Pretty interesting, pretty good stuff. Overall, again, there's going to be a shared stash tab, and if you've reached the limit of 10 shared stash tabs, it's going to be a little bit of dead space for now. But you can see this one in the repeatable doesn't have as many maps. It has one legendary Mapworks back, but it doesn't have the 2 blue. Whereas this one has some resource bundle, lesser essence bundle, and refined resource and greater essence bundle. So you've got 4 essence bundles here. You've got again one for decoration, one respectacle, actually 2 for decorations including this. So kind of okay. If you want materials, that's the one you want to be doing. You can always switch between them. I've received a lot of questions throughout my streams, so after showing you this one, I'm gonna give you the answers before you ask them regarding how this works. You can see some of those other rewards here. You can see this one is the homesteader, so it's gonna be focused more on fort decorations and fort related stuff. And you can see there's a lot of it, and when you reach level 40 and you start doing the repeatable 10 levels, you can repeat those 10 levels infinitely, like it's an endless whoop. Start from level 1, then go to level 10, then back to level 1 and back to level 10. You can see what we get here is resource bundle, essence bundle, resource bundle, essence bundle. So similar to the one for resources, this one has that much resource and essence. This one doesn't have a legendary map, it has a blue map. This one also has 2 for decorations, and it also has a blue gear and a legendary gear bundle and 1 respectacle. So the difference would be that you're not getting a legendary map, you're getting a blue map here, and that kind of seems to be the difference from the previous one. So now, some questions that I've received. What happens when you switch your contract but you haven't collected all your rewards for your current contract? I've experimented with this. Basically, let's say I've got 10 rewards from the homesteader, but I decide to not collect them and switch to adventurer, and I'm doing adventurer, and I get like 10 more rewards for the adventurer. What's gonna happen when I start collecting is I'm gonna first collect the adventurer rewards while it's active, and then once those are done, it would start prompting me to collect the other ones, even though the other one may not be active. So this one would prioritize, and it would be letting me collect those 10 adventurer rewards I could get, and when I start collecting, those are gonna be the first ones to collect instead of the other ones. So it is again kind of not a bad system to do it that way, and again, keep in mind you can just keep stockpiling rewards and not collect them until you're ready. They're not gonna disappear. You can switch between contracts and level those up. My advice is level this one up to 40, then level the other 2 to 40, and then start maybe doing adventurer contract to get a nice amount of maps. And if you want to be doing fort stuff and enchanting, craftsman and homesteader contracts are pretty good. So what do you get from the contracts? You kind of saw the things, but I'm gonna show you some footage of the things you can collect and what happens. So as you can see now, I'm gonna open up my contracts, and you see I've got 30 unclaimed contract rewards from various different contracts I've been doing. And you see, once you collect them, of course it goes to your consumables inventory, and eventually you're gonna see a message that your inventory is full. And then what you need to do is, well, go and use some stuff. You can see using certain things just puts them immediately into your gear inventory, like the gear bundles, and then using resources puts it into the resource inventory, and using fort decorations puts it in your fort. It unlocks it and adds multiple, if it's one that can be stackable, multiple instances of this decoration that you can use. So it goes to the so-called fort inventory. Now when you open map bundles or Mapworks bundles, you're gonna see that you get 3 maps, one for each act of the certain rarity, So there's blue and orange as we said. So you can see I've opened a legendary Mapworks bundle and I've got 3 Mapworks Porto both times, and I ended up having 2 of each act as a legendary map. Now let's collect some more rewards. You can see you're collecting, and the same cycle repeats. Generally it's super quick to get rewards, super quick to get those contract levels, and as long as you have enough maps you can keep doing that endless cycle of farming maps to do contracts, to get fame and to get those contract levels, and then getting more maps and just opening new portals. At one point you might have too many maps and you might want to switch to a different contract, because you're just gonna end up filling up your storage space with maps you cannot run, especially if you run that in party and you're taking turns. It's generally very well designed, so pretty cool. So since we mentioned that there's gonna be maps and Mapworks and more information about that, what is the Mapworks system? The Mapworks system is a system where, as you see, you get the Mapworks bags, you open those Mapworks bags, and then from each bag you get 3 blue maps or 3 legendary maps based on the bag rarity, and those maps would be one of each act, one of each frontier, and they would give you 25 gear work, or they would give you things like 50 bonus gear work. And gear work, I've got a confirmation from developers that gear work is hard capped at 100. So if you have 50 gear work from your items and pet and 3 of work in total for your character, so that means that if you press I and then C and scroll down here, if this says 50% gear work, then the other 50% here would add up to 100, and then if you have another person around you to give you the adventurer's buff of another 15, that other 15 would not work. So regardless whether you have more than 100 altogether, it's not gonna go over 100. The other thing you need to keep in mind is that you can get again like more gear work from this one, less gear work from the other one. Whether you want to be doing those maps or the other ones depends on your gear. Keep in mind it's still probably good to stack up some gear work just in case when you're solo, when you don't have others. So I think stack up to 50% gear work for when doing those maps, and stack up to 75% gear work here when doing the blue maps. And keep in mind the gear work from maps does not show up here even while you are inside of the map. So the gear work you're seeing on this slot here is just gear work from the tree of work and from your items. So I'm gonna remove all my gear work items. You can see now I'm at 25. 25, that's 5% from the gear work and 20% from my difficulty, and then when I equip those items it goes to 49 because they give me gear work. So account for the gear work from the difficulty as well as from the tree of works 5% when checking whether you want to be stacking more or less. Now there's other things to talk about the gear work, like how does gear work work. For example, let's say the monster has a dice roll of 100, and let's say for example this monster rolling between 1 and 10 on the dice means it's gonna drop an item. But let's say rolling between 1 and between 11 and 20 means it's gonna be wacky because you have 100% gear work. So that's double the chance of dropping an item without gear work. So let's say the item has 10% and the monster has 10% chance to drop an item, any rarity, and you kill it, and it drops that item because it rolled between 1 and 100. But then let's say you kill another monster with the exact same chance, but you actually proc your wacky drop, which is between, for example, 11 and 20, because that's double the regular chance. So meaning that if a monster has 10% chance to drop an item and you have 100% gear work, that percent would be 20. That's just the random numbers I'm selecting to try and kind of make the point. I'm not the best at explaining this, but that's how it works. It doesn't mean you're gonna get an extra item. It means that there's an extra up to double chance for the monster to drop an item. Now when this item drops, if it's lucky, it's gonna be always green, blue or orange. If you don't see the lucky drop, that means even white gear can drop. They made that change with this patch. Now another thing that's good to know is of course anything other than that in the row means it may not drop an item, so there's still gonna be a chance for a monster to not drop an item. And again, this doesn't increase the chance of gear dropping in general, like with higher quality. It increases in doubles the chance of an item dropping. That's how it works. So it's not gonna give you magic find, it's not gonna give you the chance of finding more legendaries directly, but it still lets you find more legendaries by finding more items and allowing all those items to roll the dice for rarity. So the more items you find, the better the chance of finding a legendary. In a way, that's how gear work helps. It's still a stat not to be underestimated, and it's still good to try and get 50% gear work, excluding the 50 from map. I think that's pretty much it for gear work. If I explain it bad and you want a better explanation, let me know in the comments. I can try and explain it better or show you how one other person in the note feedback forums explained it better. Another thing that changed that I'm not a big fan of is, I'm thinking it's a bug, but legendary items can now row with 2 or 3 affixes instead of 4. So you can see this is an old legendary item from before the patch. This is a new one from after the patch. This one has 4 affixes, this one has 2 affixes, then this one has 3 affixes. And you can see finding a legendary item with 4 affixes probably works on weapons, but even then it's not a guaranteed thing. So you can find blue items with more affixes than legendary items now, and I'm thinking this is a bug. I'm hoping it is not a bug. Another thing another thing that I'm not happy about in a big way, I'm really not happy about that a faster cooldown for relic active skills seems to have been removed from the drop pool on armors, all sorts of armors. I've been talking to my viewers over the past 2 days to see if someone was able to find after the patch an item that gives you faster cooldown for relic active skill, and no one has been finding any of those other than on weapons. So yeah, on weapons we can get it, and I've gotten a bunch of weapons with that. So probably the developers want us to use the enchanter and enchant the weapon with that relic active skill. Faster cooldown for it. I'm not even sure we can get it. I'm not even sure we can get it even with enchanting, because you see this one gives us relic cooldown but not relic active, and yeah, that's kind of a boring thing to do, because I mean, it's not like spamming your relic active skill was more overpowered than things like entropy or like energy spikes or absolver builds and so on. You can still do okay, decent damage by spamming them, but you're not gonna be the super duper OP build, and it just is removing some freedom from us. So now I'm forced to use level 31 and 41 items on a level 60 character just so I can get my cooldown to 0.8 seconds. See, that's not even a 0-second cooldown on my relic active skill. So there is this thing. In regards to items, overall they've added more affixes to legendary and to blue items, so you're gonna be seeing a lot of things that are modifying certain skills. So cooldown, damage, duration, all of those things to certain skills would exist now on items. So be on the lookout for those. You can end up making a set where you're using only blue items that give you plus damage to your main damage skill and have an extremely strong setup. Combine that with enough crit chance and crit damage and that's gonna be strong enough. but of course you're gonna be sacrificing the legendary bonuses you can get from armor, so that's a thing. Overall, there's a lot of freedom now with those affixes. I just hope they fix the legendary double, triple affix instead of 4 affix bug, and hopefully they return the faster cooldown for relic active skill into the fray, into the drop chances. I've also not seen bug chance drop much on legendary items on armor, so they might have removed it. And maybe they want people to be using shields to get bug chance and not armors. Again, that's another thing I'm not a big fan of. So hopefully those things kind of change, because I really loved being able to get bug chance from armors and to stack relic active skill cooldown reduction from armors as well. So now let's move on to talking about something else. So how does the new Lifebound system work? Well, as they announced that the Lifebound system would be changing now, is you find an item and then you find Scroll of Lifebound, and then you use the Scroll of Lifebound to make an item Lifebound, which means you can die and lose it if you die. So that's kind of how it goes. It gives you 20% item stats on that item. But again, if you die, this item is lost and cannot be recovered, and that's pretty solid, pretty nice kind of punishment. And I'm not a big fan of this system, because the old system allowed us to find an item that's Lifebound with 20% stats, and then use Scroll of Unbinding to remove those stats. So right now, if you have Scrolls of Unbinding, you can kind of exploit and do this thing that I just did. Don't do it. Please don't do it. It's kind of a bullshit thing to do. But yeah, I just wanted to show you how the old system worked and how the new system works. So yeah, I'm not gonna be using this weapon anymore. It was sacrificed for the greater good. Now let's remove this item because it's a cheated item. So yeah, let's just do this to that item. Boom. So yeah, don't do this. Don't exploit this system in that way. But again, kind of that's how it used to work and that's how it works now. So they're probably gonna be considering more changes to this system, because right now this system is not promoting using it. Mostly it's gonna be used majorly by hardcore players or people who somehow ended up having 2 super great items that are pretty similar, that are giving them the best bonuses they can get, and that kind of seem legit and strong, and they just want to use those items and maybe use a Lifebound scroll on one of the items, and then if it breaks, well, they've got a spare one. So this system is not that great, and I think there's many ways to make it better, such as, for example, making it so that when you die you don't lose the item, but actually make the item broken, and then add an item that a consumable item that allows us to repair this, and then with that consumable item we can probably repair 50 or 100% of the durability, and maybe based on what difficulty we die in, lose a different amount of durability. I've already sent such feedback in Node, but no one seemed to have been responding to it. I think only one person responded with a downvote. I guess they don't like that. But I still prefer the old system, just with decreased drop rates of the Lifebound items. But the new one is kind of like atrociously boring system of Lifebound. It makes it kind of something I'm not even gonna use that Lifebound system, the new one, unless it changes, unless it allows for a more easy way to kind of get the most out of it. And I guess maybe making that loss of the item not permanent and being able to repair it would be probably the best way to handle it. So enough of Lifebound, enough of this system. Let me know what you think about the new and the old one, what you would like to see with that system, so maybe we can send that feedback to Extra. So in the meantime, let's talk about something else. The boot drinker changed as well in regards to relic active and relic activation skill. First, let's go through the activation. It now looks different. And it now does some good stuff. Basically, it unleashes an explosion of boot and spawns spinning blades around you that do 150% weapon damage on hit and bleed for 100% weapon damage over 8 seconds, stacking up to 4 times and lasting for 8 seconds. And this bleeding is the first time that we can stack up bleeding up to 4 times. Before, bleeding was only 1 time stack. And this bleeding would be separate from other types of bleeding like that one. So you can actually have one single stack bleed and then one quadruple stack bleed. And that's a lot of damage over time, a lot of damage. You also, as before, gain 50% chance to bleed for 50% weapon damage over 4 seconds, and then everyone and you gets 25% damage buff as long as they're within range to you. So let's show you what it looks like. This is it. You've got those blades that spin next to you, and someone reported that there's a bug that if you're using Cyclone mode, this does not actually work. So keep that in mind. Maybe when using Cyclone mode that might be happening to you. So yeah, pretty solid. So that's the extra plus 25% damage that you can get from this buff while it lasts. And now let's show you the active skill, not the activation but the active skill. Spinning blade has been boosted. The damage now is amazing. See, I can get it to 630% weapon damage, and it also makes them bleed for 110% for 6 seconds. So pretty solid. It now has a longer lifespan. It now kind of has a longer animation. I'm gonna quickly remove my Egg of Wonder so you can clearly see the animation. Egg of Mayhem, my bad, it's no longer Egg of Wonder. So let's show you the animation. See, it lasts for a little bit longer. Before it used to spin for a shorter duration, so that means a little bit more damage that you can probably do. And this 630 damage, if you're wondering how I get that high damage on this, is first I've got this 50% damage, then I've got where was it? Here 20% relic active skill damage, and then I've got more relic active skill damage from ramming robot. So this tier 2 bonus and this tier 2 bonus, and this damage adds up to 90% more spinning blade damage. So amazing, good synergy. So if you're spamming relic active skills, this is a great class to choose for the spinning blade, and actually for any relic. So some of the other changes you probably saw as text on the screen until now. Now let's show you more about the other relics. Now let's talk about some of the changes to the relics, and the first relic I would like to talk about is my new favorite for relic active skills, and that's the Cold Heart. The Cold Heart right now has amazing reworks done to it. The activation skill and the active skill have been reworked. So let's just quickly read through that. Activate Cold Heart, fire 3 glaciers from your position that hit enemies for 100% weapon damage, knock them back, as well as summon a snowstorm around you that lasts for 8 seconds and freezes enemies for 4 seconds on contact. Additionally, you gain 50% chance to chew enemies for 8 seconds and 20% chance to freeze enemies you hit for 2 seconds, and you and nearby allies get 25% damage buff. This can be upgraded so that Cold Front, which is this one, now also drops icicles all around you that deal 40% weapon damage per hit. Let's show you that in action in the town where there's nothing to obstruct your view of that skill. You see, that's the 3 glaciers, they knock back enemies, and this circle in the middle is from my shoulders, so it's not part of the skill. So that's kind of it, and you still have that 25% damage, which would show up over here as extra damage when it's active. Over here you would be able to see it plus 25% damage or something like that. Now another thing Another thing that you might want to check is the active skill. So the active skill, let's read it first. You fire a wave of icicles that pierce through enemies, dealing etc. damage, freezing them for 0.5 seconds and chilling them for 6 seconds. So you can get the cooldown down by 50% from this. You can get this one increased 50% damage as well when you max it out, and it's great. And this is what the skill looks like. You can see it's got very nice range. It pierces, it's a cono spread shot, like multi-shot spread shot AoE, and most of all the chilling and freezing is amazing, because now chilling and freezing works on bosses, so that's something great to build around on a relic active skill. It's just fantastic as a skill. It does decent damage. This 414% weapon damage is with the damage I get from, where was it, from this one, tier 2 bonus relic active skill damage. So this 20% and that 50% in the relic itself would give you 414 weapon damage. On a forged you get another 20% from another passive, so you can get that over 500% weapon damage. Now freezing touch remained as it was. Enemies who hit you have a 20% chance to become frozen for 3 seconds, and this 20% chance is actually with the 10% I've added. So it's default 10%, with those 10% you get it to 20%. And then freezing to that is bad enough, but remaining encased in ice while active is a trauma only cold heart can inflict. So increase the duration for enemies who are frozen after hitting you 100%, meaning instead of 1.5 this is 3 seconds. So the default is 1.5. Now you've got the ice golem as well. When you sledge shoot enemy, there's 15% chance you summon an ice golem to fight alongside you for 20 seconds. I've not spec'd into this one, but it still procs, but I don't think this changed at all. So yeah, pretty good relic overall. Next let's show you another relic to showcase, and that would be the electrode. So the electrode, let's have a look at the activation quickly and read through it. Activating electrode, immediately fire electric shockwaves from your location, dealing enemies, damaging enemies for X damage and leaving them shocked for 8 seconds. You gain 50% chance to shock for 50% weapon damage over 4 seconds. And you also get that 25% damage buff. So this is what it looks like if we activate it, and it's leveled up to at least 30, so we can get this lingering charge. On activation, your electric shockwaves now leave small storms in their wake that deal 150% weapon damage over time and leave enemies shocked for 4 seconds. So let's activate. You can see, and then let's show you this 25% damage buff I was talking about. Does it show up here? Maybe they moved it. They might have moved it, but it is here now. It is here now. It used to show up in my skill bar there, and I could actually see 50% damage yesterday when I press I and then open those stats. So maybe it got moved. Maybe it got moved, but you can see my damage is much higher while this is on me. And now it's gone. Now the damage is back there. So pretty good, pretty nice. And now let's see the active skill. The active skill changed. So the active skill used to do those storms that kind of move around and randomly hit enemies, but now you've got Lightning Strike, which is 35% chance when you hit a shocked enemy. No, not this one. Localized Storm, which is you channel a powerful storm above you that lasts for 6 seconds, calling down lightning strikes once every second that strike a random target in range for 540% weapon damage. This is with max damage again, and with max cooldown. So yeah, with this one you basically do this, and then it lasts for 6 seconds, and all around you, if there's enemies, they're gonna get struck by lightnings if they're nearby for that amount of damage. So it used to just summon those lightnings that travel and hit randomly enemies. This is good for melee builds, for like a spin to win build, or for a slammer build, something that's gonna have enemies around you. this relic active skill. Apart from that, I don't think there's been any other changes to this skill, to this relic. So this remained the same, this remained the same. Now I'm gonna switch to a different hero and show you more relic information. So for the Flaming Destroyer, the only change I've seen was actually for the activation. The activation skill has been changed. Instead of to rain down just the fireballs here, to actually go for 6 massive flaming swords that crash down from above, smashing enemies in the area for 200% weapon damage and burning the survivors for an additional 200% weapon damage for 6 seconds. You still get the burn chance of 50% for 50% weapon damage over 4 seconds, and you still get that extra increased damage for the duration of your relic activation. So there are some interesting things with this one. The other stuff didn't change, it seems to have remained as it is, so I'm just gonna show you this and then we can move on to the next relic. So this is it. You can see those swords, I'm still proccing the fireballs of course from my level 30 stuff. The rest is the same, so this is the activation. I'm gonna remove the Egg of Wonder so you can, and the Egg of Mayhem, so you can see what it kind of does. So just a second. Just equipping anything, whatever, just so you can see. See, it's just this sword. That's still the activation. It still does only 360% weapon damage, so compared to the other relic activation skills, now this is pretty unappealing because of the low damage compared to the Blood Drinker or the Cold Heart active skills, the relic active skills. So yeah, not too bad, but it's still temporary. They're gonna be reworking that even more, so keep that in mind. It's gonna get reworked even more, even further. So enough about this. Now let's show you the next relic. So let's talk about how Bane changed. A big change that is hinting towards the developers wanting Bane to be more summoner related relic. So first of all, the Bane active skill is no longer a spell. I'm gonna remove the Egg of Wonder so you can, Egg of Mayhem, so you can kind of see better. So you see, it's this spider we cast. The problem is you can't recast the skill, so Egg of Mayhem builds are dead on arrival if you're using the Bane relic. You see, it makes the spider, and this spider lasts for 20 seconds, but like Royal Shasta before the patch, how it was broken that when you recast Venomous Maw it wasn't respawning the spider, it is now bugged, and if you have a spider up it's not gonna respawn it, it's just gonna consume your cooldown. So there's that bug that the developers hopefully fix soon. So yeah, apart from that, the spider, again, as I said, is not a spell, but it's a spider that follows you around and poisons allies. They also reworked the activation to kind of be a little bit more impressive, apparently, to look better. I like it. Look at that activation. It's still doing the same thing, but it's showing you some spiders in different places. It's like using the old Venomous Maw, but without the small spiderlings. And yeah, and the spider seems to be bigger now. You can look at that big spider now. So we've got this one big spider, we've got this one spider, and yeah, there's a lot of spiders everywhere with the Bane activation. So let's look at the activation about Miasma. Triggering Miasma gives 50% chance to poison for 50% damage over 4 seconds. Creates a miasma around you that poisons enemies for etc. damage. Launches 7 ghostly spiders that surge out from you, poisoning enemies for 50% weapon damage for 6 seconds. And again we receive that damage buff like the other relics. And this one, it summons a Spider Queen who attacks enemies for 150% weapon damage and fires web that splatters, slowing enemies who pass through it by 50%. I would like to see this spider being ranged and firing webs and firing maybe poison fields on the ground, and I would like to be able to recast it if my cooldown is ready. because this long huge cooldown is just wow, such a huge cooldown. So yeah, I don't see a reason why this cooldown should be this big, because it still lasts for 24 seconds and the cooldown right now for me is 20 seconds. But I mean, it's not like we're gonna be abusing the shit out of it if we had some Egg of Wonder builds possible. So to be able to get this to like 2, 3, 4 seconds, maybe even 1 second with 100% relic active skill cooldown. Right now my relic active skill cooldown is pretty bad. This is 12%. This is just the only cooldown I've got. So that 12% together with this 20% and together with the 50% in the skill, I'm at 82%, and that's still a 20-second cooldown. So I'm not sure how it's gonna work if I have it down to 0, if it's really gonna be down to 0, or whether this is just fixed to 20%. But yeah, I don't like it because relic active Egg of Wonder, Egg of Mayhem builds are just dead on arrival. I mean, there's gonna be more reworks to the relics in general, so be on the lookout for those. Be prepared for things to change in ways you didn't expect. But yeah, hopefully everyone is happy when they introduce some more changes to the relic system. Enough for that, now let's move on to the next topic. So how did the electrode change? Well, not much has changed other than slightly improved activation, but completely reworked active skill. The active skill now, instead of doing some random storms that seek out enemies, no, actually they didn't even seek out enemies, they were just moving randomly and hitting anything in their path. Now you have a 6-second buff. So you get for 6 seconds this buff that calls down lightning strikes once every second that strike a random target in range for 540 weapon damage. So you do the skill and you see you've got this buff underneath your feet. And that's for 6 seconds, so every 1 second, meaning 6 times throughout the whole duration, you're gonna be striking down enemies that are nearby. It works well on Forged or Realmaster, on stuff like that, that's close range. Whereas the activation is like this. So they kind of reworked it a little bit, and with the activation you do get something, let's see what exactly it says. Immediately fire electric shockwaves from your location, damaging enemies for X weapon damage and leaving them shocked for 8 seconds. You still get the buff, you still get the chance to shock increased by 50% for 50% weapon damage over 4 seconds, so it is still kind of the same. The rest remained as it was, so no significant changes for this relic. Now there's 2 nerfs to the hammer, spin and pound that I wanna mention in regards to Realmaster changes. First of all, this one used to give us on tier 1 50% movement speed bonus after cast for 6 seconds. That's been nerfed to 25, it's still great. Believe me, it was really overpowered with that 50% movement speed bonus now that it's a charge skill, a charge skill and not just a cooldown skill. So you can get a lot of charges. I've got 2, but with an item you can get another charge for this, which is that item, the Centrifugal Demolisher. So you can equip that, and that's 3 charges, and you can still be pretty strong. This also even reduces the cooldown of those charges, increases the damage. Pretty standard debuff and nerf. It was kind of reasonable to do a nerf to hammer spin that way. So you can see it still moves pretty fast, and it's a great skill regardless of that. Now Pound's nerf was the endurance bonus. It was gain 50% attack speed and damage with basic attacks for 6 seconds before, now it's 30%. So basically what the nerf in the patch notes says is nerfed pounce endurance bonus effect to 30% from 50 and duration to 6 seconds from 10 seconds. So yeah, it's reasonable again. Most people don't even care much about basic attack builds with attack speed and stuff like that, so they're not gonna care much about this. I think it's reasonable, I think it's okay. So there's other changes. The train cars have been reduced in size to 75% of their original size. So that's another change you might want to know about the Railmaster. All the other stuff would be on your screen. I think everything else is kind of reasonable. Not that much changes in this class. There's another change that it's worth mentioning, and increase damage reduction for melee combatants to 50% and it used to be 30% before. This is kind of an invisible damage reduction, and the way I think it works is if you're using a melee attack skill like a hammer spin or this one or basic melee attack, that would proc in a way that that you get that damage reduction when you hit the enemy. I don't think we get that when we use the skill, because let's see, damage reduction, anything here about damage reduction, anything about defense? I don't see anything like that. Let's use a skill. See, nothing's increasing, but if I were to hit an enemy, most likely I'm gonna see some damage reduction bonus there somewhere in the stats. But it's invisible. You don't see it over here, so you cannot know whether it works or not, unfortunately. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Enough of that. Let's talk about something else now. So what changed for the Forged? Not much changed, but one major change would be the rework of power projection, which now no longer heals you over time for a few seconds for its duration, but it heals you and your allies nearby for 15% at the start. This is the skill. They actually added the drone on top of you to hover above your head. Pretty nice, pretty good. Now the other thing that has changed is Fracking Strike now has a working non-broken tier 1 bonus, and it can also proc the legendary Mountain King's Locomotion, which gives you up to 25 or 50 with the set bonus heat when you vent, when you use any vent skill. So let's say we do this, and then boom, we get heat. So you can kind of spam Fracking Strike, because it costs 50 heat and it gains 50 heat back. It's not overpowered, it's actually pretty nice to have such a build where you can kind of spam this as much as you want. You can even do that, vent 200 and then spam it quickly twice. And you can see the bonus that we are talking about, this tier 1 bonus, makes me hit with my hands next to me to do those little shockwaves. Shockwave here and shockwave here. Like on each side of the Forged we see a little shockwave. So this is probably not that great, because it only works if the enemies are really close to you. Like spin to win, then vortex bomb kind of distance. But it's still nice to have it. So apart from that, there aren't any other major changes for the Forged, other than some stuff where people couldn't run through the Forged and stuff like that, and voice sound effects and things like that being changed, and visual effects changed and things like that. And Vortex Bomb can now pull enemies, and Vortex Bomb has been kind of fixed in a way and that there was an issue where it could pull and stuck players inside when you use it, so it's no longer doing that. So good things about the Forged. Now let's show you something else. So for the Sharpshooter there have been a few changes. The first change you might notice is the base ammo regeneration was reduced by 25%. So while I'm using my skills, you see I'm using ammo, and this ammo regenerates at a certain rate. The base rate was reduced by 25%. Now another thing ammo related was the ammo regeneration from targeted strikes tier 2. This is 30% and it used to be 50. Another thing that you would notice is Heart Seeker's tier 3 milestone bonus missile now starts further spread out and seek out targets slower, ramping up that speed over time, which makes them not pump up immediately upon firing and more accurately reflect the intent of the seeking missiles. So that's this thing here, the tier 3 bonus. Interesting change. Then there were changes to Oil Shasta. So Shasta Pet now gets a buff whenever you or she takes damage, giving her up to 50% bonus damage. Casting Oil Shasta replaces the current Shasta minion with a fresh summon. And then there have also been changes to Goblin Legion, meaning what was happening before is it was bugged. And you cast those first initial goblins, the 2 goblins, but then the next 3 shots would cast 2 and then another 2 and then another 2, and you ended up with 8 goblins, and it was always intended for you to end up with 5, which is 2 and then 1, another 1 and another 1. So 3 less goblins because it was recasting the 2 instead of recasting just a single one. This has been fixed. Now Ghost Visage along with Shadow Step on the Dismage has had some reworks, like an increased range, 2 meters more range, but they bugged it. It's now buggy and glitchy because you can see if I do it here, it's teleporting, but if I do it somewhere out of reach, my character would walk and reach a range where it could teleport, and it didn't used to work like that before. If I had this like that, it would just teleport like this. Now we have to hold shift to make it work like this, and that's not good. That's not a good mechanic for escape skill. So they should make it not work like a melee or whatever skill to try and reach the distance required to go where our cursor is, but to just go into that direction as if we are holding shift. To work like this instead of like this. You saw what happened after I pressed my space bar, which is my hotkey for it. So okay, let's say I'm pressing the button now. I hope you heard me pressing it. So you saw how the character walked towards there instead of teleporting. So that's this change. Another change is they've added a 2-second cooldown to those to prevent, apparently it was done to prevent people from accidentally using multiple charges at once. I think 2 seconds is an overkill. 1 second would have been more than fine to prevent us from spamming the skill by accident. If it's meant to just prevent accidents and not to nerf the mobility and make us be slower overall. So you can now see the recharge rate cooldown, but you cannot see the regular cooldown of the charge. It would have been nice if those charges here kind of filled upwards or sideways, so you can see how close we are to getting a new charge. That's my suggestion if a developer ends up watching this video. So yeah, next, what else have we for the sharpshooter? There's stuff regarding Onslaught's tier 3 bonus, doing 75% explosive damage instead of 25. Dot finally works again after still only dealing 1 damage for some reasons. I've tested this and I didn't see much. I tested this earlier and I didn't see much about that happening. I mean, this 75% weapon damage bonus, it still doesn't do much damage. So even if it was doing 25% damage before and now the 75, this skill really still needs a buff. It needs a buff to do as much damage as this one and this one, even this one. Overall, let's see what else changed. More changes to Curse of PP. Curse of PP now actually has been buffed, so instead of 15% we get 25% damage reduction per stack, and that's up to 2 stacks, meaning you can get the enemies to do 50% less damage with this max stacked on them. Then there's fixing more procs for sharpshooters. Since their creation, these have been implemented, applying and executing incorrectly, causing a ton of errant behavior. That has all been addressed. So yeah, that's kind of something that I'm not sure exactly what it talks about. Is it talking about those procs, like the the adventurer buffs, or is it talking about other procs? In any case, it's probably talking about stuff like this one, chance for precision skills to heal, or maybe chance for precision skills to stun, and things like those. That's probably what it's referring to. In any case, that was it for the sharpshooter. You saw all the stuff as text as well, so hopefully that was helpful. Now let's move on to another hero's rebalancing. Here we are at the Disc Mage rebalancing segment, and that's gonna be a bigger one because there's been a lot of changes to the Disc Mage skills. First of all, they greatly increased the Netherine Warrior in Spirit Well's attack speed for both his melee attack and his charge skills. So there is this one. I can't show you right now because I don't have points into it, but that's what they're referring to. Also, Entropy got a rework, so let's show you a little bit of info about that. Just to find it. In fact, let's talk about Entropy in a moment. I'm gonna just go through the list one by one. The Disc Mage dark and white bars now stop draining for a few seconds after gaining their respective charge, rather than instantly beginning to drain as soon as they gain that state, and this gaining state has ended. So they've inverted the Holy Bolt tier 1 and tier 3 milestones and reduced the damage of its now tier 1 milestone to 250% skill damage, not double. This one I can show you. So yeah, this is the Holy Bolt, and now you can see that it says every third cast fires a large bolt that deals 50% more damage, meaning it's doing half of the damage more instead of double damage like it used to say before. And now the tier 3 is while Holy Charge fire 2 Holy Bolts instead of 1 per cast. Pretty okay, it's not that bad, it's balanced that way. Now they've added a 2-second cooldown to Shadow Step to prevent people from casting it in succession rapidly by accident. And the way it used to work before is this. You point your mouse and it casts, and now to do this you need to hold shift. Now if I do the same thing, like look at where my cursor is, it's kind of too far away from the distance, even though the distance has been increased by the way by 2 more meters. I'm gonna press spacebar, I'm gonna make sure you can hear me press it. Now did you see what happened? My hero started moving towards that location to get within range of the direction. So if you want to be casting that and not get this mechanic, you have to hold shift. I hope they think this is a bug and they fix it, because it's super annoying, it's super bad, and it could get you killed if you're relying on it. So yeah, pretty terrible to do it that way. It also got a 2-second cooldown, which in gaining charge, not in gaining charges, but you can see the charge gaining cooldown, but the skill itself has a 2-second in between casts cooldown, which you can't see, it's invisible. So yeah, it's kind of, I would much rather see the cooldown of the other stuff getting reduced to 1 second, and then maybe being able to visually see the charges filling up here, or even this one that they're using right now, but we need to see the other cooldown as well, or maybe get it reduced to 1 second so that we don't have to kind of wait and time it in those 2 seconds. But yeah, that's it for this skill. Moving on, next, energy spikes now does 10 spikes instead of 5 while dark charged with anti-shotgunning in place, and does an extra wave of 5 light spikes if light charged. These will also hit, so 2 times the hits. Also increase the chaotic pathing of the missiles. Well, I can show you this one as well, but I'm not charged right now. So you can see this is how the skill works. Now this is gonna be double. From 5 spikes it's 10, and you're gonna be seeing light spikes as well while I'm casting it if I'm charged. So moving on to the next one. Let's see what's next. Consecration. Increase Consecration's base damage bonus from 25 to 35%. Which means this one. From 25 to 35%, and then you can get some extra stuff like heals and intangible and being bigger and so on. But what does this mean? You get 35% extra bonus. And then you get 15 per ally. And that's a total of 75 because this stacks 5 times from what I've seen when you use Spirit Well. Unless they nerfed it and now it stacks only up to 3 times with 3 other heroes inside. So let's say it's 5 times. That's 75 and then another 35. That's gonna be 105 for you. Wow, you've got 5 creatures inside it. Pretty strong and solid bonus overall. Next, what have we here? Increased Radiant Blast range by 2 meters, nothing to discuss, just that. They've also replaced Holy Fury and Radiant Blast, so Radiant Blast is now unlocked at level 5 and Holy Fury is at level 15. Just that. Now there's something, adjusted Damnation's tooltip to match its damage decrease. But I'm not seeing what the damage decrease is. So what the hell would that refer to? I'm gonna have to look into the notes further. So fixed an issue where Damnation was always gaining its tier 3 milestone bonus, which would be this bonus. Damnation immobilizes enemies for 1 second. What would it mean, an issue where it was always gaining that bonus? Wasn't it, the way it's worded says that it's always oh, I think they mean that even if you don't have it, you are gaining it. Okay. And then fixed Luminous Run unlock, so it's at 15, not at 10. Then the Luminous Run tier 1 milestone now heals up to 25%, not 10%. So when you use Luminous Run, boom, 25% of your total HP. This used to be 10, good buff overall. Then, as I said, entropy, adjusting entropy milestone 1. Drop the speed by only 50%, used to be 75%, so this means entropy lasts, entropy is 50% slower instead of 75% slower. This is considered a nerf. And then the other thing that happened to it is that they increased the lifespan by only 50%, which I think was 100 or 75, I can't remember, but yeah, it lasts only 50% longer, which is also a nerf, but the skill is still strong. It's still a super nice skill to use, so it's reasonable, it's okay. Then they fixed an issue where Holy Fury wouldn't ignite explosive barrels, and they fixed an issue where casting Holy Fury wouldn't trigger the charge bars activation proc and things like that. Then they fixed an issue with Radiant Blast calculating damage bonuses from items twice. So for example, the Brilliant Herald legendary was giving you 2500 instead of 500% extra damage. And they also say that they propagated this fix to the Dark Spear's tier 3 milestone bonus, which also suffered from the same bug. Which would be this one. Dark Spears now immediately hits the area for 100% weapon damage, which I believe was for 200 maybe, or something like that, how it used to work before, which is fine. I mean, that's kind of the fixes for the mage. Hope it was clear. Next, let's move on to the next segment. So that was it for the patch overview. There were so many things in the patch notes that I didn't include in this video because it would have ended up being hours and hours of footage and me talking about the changes. So read through the patch notes in detail. It was so long that it took 2 Steam posts to fit them all into one place. I hope the info and my discussion about the changes was helpful to some of you out there. I would love to hear from all of you regarding the changes that we discussed throughout this video, so feel free to leave your comments in the comment section below. If you wanna get notified for more content about this game or others like it, or various different types of RPGs, ARPGs, tactical RPGs, all sorts of RPGs, or other types of looters, you could subscribe to my channel, get that bell button clicked to not miss those notifications. Thanks again for watching the video, folks. Keep it cool, and until next time, goodbye.